Good morning. I'm Reverend Jennifer Sachs. I'm the senior minister here at Unity Atlanta Church, affectionately called Rev Jen, and it is our honor to have you with us this morning as we celebrate the exquisite life of Sandy Qualls. And so let us begin this time together as we do all things with prayer. Gracious, loving God, we are gathered here today to celebrate the life of a woman who was deeply loved. Sandy has been a radiant blessing in the world and has enriched so many lives in infinite ways. As we now prepare to release her into God's loving embrace, we can rejoice in the wisdom, the strength, the peace, the generosity, and the gentleness that were the essence of her being. Yet even as we do, as we prepare to celebrate her wondrous life, we mourn her physical presence here in this earthly experience. So we ask in these moments, gracious, loving God, that you, in your infinite compassion and in your ever-abiding love, open our minds and our hearts to experience a new relationship with this wonderful and wonder-filled loving woman, a relationship born of spirit. May we now gently release what was, as we make room for all which is yet to be. Gracious, loving God, as we live forever in your presence. And let us say, Amen. Amen.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Yes, applaud. It's a celebration. And so beautifully done. Yes, please applaud if you want. This is a Unity New Thought service, and we don't do the fire and brimstone and anything solemn. And it's important to celebrate because Sandy's was such a radiant and exquisite life. And when we think about the Lord's Prayer, you know, the kingdom and the power and the glory are God's, and we all get to be here in this life experience for a certain time. And the gift that we get is to make the most of it while we can. We also need to acknowledge that the human part of us feels the physical loss. And so we let ourselves, even in our teaching, imagine that God is Father, Mother, Parent, you know, that power and presence that we affirm all the time as pure, unconditional love and compassion. And I like to imagine that whoever the psalmist was, it's out for consideration that it may not have been King David, who wrote the 23rd Psalm, that whatever they were experiencing in their time was comforted by these words and knowing God in the midst of them as comfort and peace. And the psalmist says it this way: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen."
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my mother, Sherry Barnard, I'd like to read a poem called Dare by James Dillett Freeman. And this poem comes with a handwritten note from Sandy that says, "Jim Freeman recited this for Sherry and me when we visited him at Unity in 1976. So my mom thought it would be an appropriate poem for today. Dare by James Dillett Freeman. The crocuses have bloomed before it's April here. They will not stay entombed within a winter fear. We put on scarves and boots or huddle by the fire, and tall trees hug their roots and dare to look no higher. But these, so small and slight, push boldly forth and flower. I think they might, and so they have the power. When winter will not go, but lingers on, shall I, because there may be snow, let spring go by?"
Good morning. I'm the far younger brother of this foursome of Stovins. And on reflection this year, I realized that I didn't spend all that much time in person with Sandy. That we were separated. We left Clearwater when I was 4, and but I didn't realize that because whenever we connected, short visits, reunions, it was very close, and Sandy just exuded love and warmth and made us feel connected, whether by phone or the short visits we had. As I look back, the most time I spent with Sandy at one time was when I was 9 years old and got to visit Sandy, Mickey, and 3-year-old Stevie in the little town of Okeechobee. Got to take my first air flight all by myself down there, and spent a couple weeks there. It was hot days, warm nights, a few more bugs than we had in Spokane, and Spanish moss on the trees. It was a fine experience and a great time to feel close to the whole family. But what I remember most, when the Qualls would visit us in Kansas City when I was a kid, they would drive up and visited us a couple of times, and then later on at our various family reunions was laughter. When the 4 siblings were together, there was a lot of laughter, and as a kid I just thought my 3 siblings were the funniest people in my world. And Sandy brought a lot of very dry wit and timely comments to add to the party, so it was much appreciated. So that's what I remember about the 4 of us being together, is the laughter and happiness. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. I'm Steve Qualls. I'm Sandy's oldest and most handsome son. I wanted to just acknowledge, for years, my mother compiled and sent out an email list, as long as there was email, as many email, of everybody's birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, those things. And so it kind of kept us all in touch, knew who was celebrating, and then there were always responses. Sherry was always right there wishing everybody happy birthday and happy anniversary or whatever. And it was really neat to see that show up every month. When she got to the point that she didn't feel like she had the energy to continue that, Beth Barnard picked that up, and Beth read the poem just a minute ago. And I thought that was very fitting, because not only did she keep the birthday list active and engaged, but now she includes a very touching poem every month. At the very first day of the month, she sends it out, and without fail. And those poems touch me every time, and so I thought it was so fitting that you read the poem for your mom today, and I think that ties to you, Barry. So thank you, Beth, and thank you for continuing Mom's tradition there, okay? We all have a lot of the same words to say about her, right? She was quiet, she was strong, she was spiritual, but all in a in a settled way. She taught us unconditional love, and I always knew, no matter where I was, no matter how long it had been since I'd seen her, I knew that she loved me no matter where it was. If I never told her again, it was okay, because we all knew. Growing up, I wasn't the easiest child to raise, but she stood strongly with me and helped me and guided me. I think to a certain degree, my father, as you all know, traveled quite a bit and was away from home for most of the week sometimes, and those kind of things. And so we were with our mom most of the time. So she was the one that taught us, that led us, and I thank God for that, because it was the best. I can't imagine the opposite. Okay, sorry, so she taught us, and what she taught me, and I keep thinking lately about things that I never really realized until later on, but you know, we grew up in a very open, accepting family. She loved everybody. She had all these friends. And I remember growing up, I didn't know that women had, call it limits, glass ceilings, whatever it will be, because our mom was strong. She could do anything, and she could be anything. And so to me, this is what women were. They were strong. There was no need for women's lib. Women were equals. Women were our partners, and that's the way I've always felt. And it seemed really strange to me to see that that wasn't the case when we got out in the real world. How could that be, right? Because our mother could do anything. She was so strong. Same thing with racial or spiritual differences, right? I remember in second grade I had a friend named Lan, and he was Jewish, and he was my best friend, and I would ride my bicycle to his house, and we would play together, and I would go to school, and people say, "Why are you playing with him?" "He's Jewish." I said, "Well, I don't even know why that matters. He's my friend. I like him. He's funny. He always had a lot of money." No, no, but he was my friend, and so it seemed so odd to me that people would draw these dividing lines because we weren't taught that. We saw no addition to that unless Dad was home. But you all know that that's the case. So that's the kind of guidance we got from her, the spiritual guidance, the love, the unconditional love is what I will always remember. She was spiritual in a quiet way. She was with Unity all the time. She always had the daily word, and she had this little stand that her daily word slid into, and we still have that stand, and I am going to take that stand home with me because I've now subscribed to the Daily Word, and I'm going to get the magazine, and I'm going to keep it in that holder every month. And she would underline words and statements in there that meant something to her, and it's been so amazing because we were with her in January just before she passed. In late December, Kevin was there and everything, and we're reading the Daily Word while we were in the hospital with her, and it's always poignant. There's always something in there that applies to the moment. I don't know how they do it, but it's always right in the moment with us. So I'm going to continue that tradition. It's interesting because now I get an email every day from the Daily Word with the Daily Word, that I can read right there on my phone. It's pretty cool. But I'm going to have the paper version in that same stand, and I'm going to keep it going forever. And I hope you all remember that and think about that. I also think about, I was thinking this when we were kids. My mom was really a very good pianist. She could play really well. And we had a book. I was looking up some songs and stuff, but we had the Reader's Digest Family Songbook. And I found out this morning that Todd still has that book. And matter of fact, you have two versions, because Lorelei had one too when she was growing up. So they have two copies of the same book. And we learned just so many of the old classic songs. I have a list. I'm going to just tell you a few of them because it was pretty cool. If I can find it. Okay. I deleted it. I remember, but it had all sorts of the old classics. Mac the Knife, I remember. It had patriotic songs. It had the Star Spangled Banner. It had America the Beautiful. It had, pardon? Sunny Side of the Street. But it went on and on with songs, and it's great because to this day, I think any of us can stand up, any of the brothers can stand up and sing those songs. And sometimes it amazes people. That, say, how do you know that song? It's just us. We know these things, all right? But so Mom she taught us. She loved us, no matter what. I know I wasn't easy. I said that. My brothers, I think, because my dad was gone longer later in our lives, and so I had more interaction with him, I guess, as a youngster. And so I probably am a little sharper in some ways, but my brothers have that solemn sweetness. I don't mean sharper that way. I mean sharper, as in stinging sharp, as in drive that nail in a little harder, sharp. But without a doubt, she loved everybody. She loved her family. She loved all of us. I sometimes think that COVID was her downfall, and the fact is she never had COVID, but she was so social. You would go to her building and, there's 600 apartments or 200 apartments, whatever it is. She knew everybody. You get on the elevator and, oh, this is Evelyn, and she has 2 sons that are in Colorado and 1 in California. They do this and that, and she does this. And when she grew up, and and everybody, you can't get out of the building because there's somebody you have to stop and meet, and she knew every one of them. And when COVID came, that pretty much ended. She was isolated, and I really felt that she began kind of slipping at that point, that she didn't have that social interaction, that she kind of gave up a little bit because of that. And I know she was ready for her day. She told us many times she didn't want to be 100 years old. It didn't matter. What mattered was life, and she lived life, and she loved everybody, and we love her. That's all I can say.
Good morning. So I'm Kevin, and I'm the middle one and the tallest one. Most of you know that Mom was born on the first day of summer. Excuse me. And it seemed to be a theme for her life. She was like summer in many, many ways. Excuse me. She was gentle, she was strong, she was serene, she was full of grace. It was never too warm for her liking. Never. Like summer, she embraced life. She loved the richness and the fullness of life. She loved the natural world, the sun, the ocean, the beach, gardening, and helping things grow, including all of us. She loved the world of human creativity. She loved music and poetry and art and the movies and the written word and acting and any expression of humankind and kindness. So, similar to Steve's story, one of my earliest memories was when we lived in Richmond and before I started school. And Mom would iron constantly on the back porch, and she would listen to the radio, and if she didn't know the song, she would sing like a half step behind the singer, like an echo. And so that's how we learned the song, because she would just sort of echo it, and we'd learn all the words and the tune. And then when she got to know the song, when she had the song down, she would sing a half step ahead of the singer, as if she was teaching the singer the song. When we lived in Dallas, one day she came home with a big picture frame and a big book full of large print copies of famous works of art. And this was before Insta or any of those things. She somehow had this idea. So every week or two, she would take one of these paintings out of the book, and she put it in the frame, and we'd hang it on the wall. And we would watch it, we would look at it, and we would study it, and we'd talk about it, and we'd talk about the artist, and we would learn about it. And many, many years later, I was taking a writing course, and the first day, at the end of the class, the professor, as a prompt, pinned up all these paintings and told us to pick one and write something about it. And they were the same paintings, the exact same book of paintings. So I wrote about all of them. When we lived in Titusville and I got my first job, she helped me open a bank account, and the bank in Titusville was right beside the Indian River. And I'll never forget, she said, "Never go to the bank without looking at the river." And I think even then, she liked the poetic double meaning of all that. And that's always stuck with me. There's so many things, small and large, that will remind me of Mom every day. She loved Shakespeare. She loved the Atlanta Olympics. She loved composting. She loved Todd playing the piano. She loved Scott singing. She loved Milano cookies and African violets, picnics, and she was adamant about putting bananas on the bottom of the cereal bowl. Put the bananas in first and the cereal on top, and it was like a surprise every day. She would take us to concerts in the park or at Emory. She took us to see Ella Fitzgerald and Mel Torme and Oscar Peterson, and we would go see the Atlanta Symphony play. She was just always exposing us to beautiful things. Mostly she loved her family all the way along. Every time we gathered or spoke or gained a new member. So we can remember her that way on the little things that each of us knew about her that she loved to do. Every day when you look at the Daily Word, you can remember her. She had small habits with big ideas and things she loved. So to finish, it seems to me that William Shakespeare wrote this sonnet specifically for my mom. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed. And every fair from fair sometime declines by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe, or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee.
Hi, I'm Todd. I'm the youngest, believe it or not. Well, gosh, I've been thinking about Mom a lot, of course, and there's a lot you could talk about. But when I was, well, so a couple of sort of unconnected things maybe. Stu mentioned her wry sense of humor, and I was thinking about how I hadn't heard her say this for a few years, but when I was a kid, she would occasionally, if something got a little bit frustrating, she'd say, "Well, birdseed." and it just came back to me, and even but when she, even in the hospital at the end of the last year, or she, when this problem came up with her heart rhythm and stuff, the charge nurse came in, and she's lying there in the bed, and the charge nurse is looking at her monitor and fiddling with things, and she says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm the charge nurse." She says, "Well, get busy." But I was also thinking about how, when I thought about some of the work that she did over the years, and just kind of how life went, there was this kind of empowerment story that not sure I completely put together, but she sort of, after she and my dad split up, which was kind of the beginning maybe of the empowerment, it's kind of enough is enough, I guess, she started working at Emory as a temp, and kind of rose through the administrative ranks until, she was the assistant to the dean of the college, and later she was the assistant to the dean of the business school. So it's kind of top rank in her zone there. And it's not too surprising. She must have been really good at it, because if you ever went to her house, everything was organized, and she had files for everything and detailed notes in all the files. And when she lived at Williamsburg, she had a calendar, and she had notes on there of everybody she talked to and everything she did. It was amazing. I'm going to lose track here. Let's see. And we used to go, to lots of, as Kevin mentioned, lots of concerts at Emory, both jazz and classical concerts. And but she would also, we would sit there together, and she would go around the room and tell me who everybody was, because she knew everybody in the administration and everybody's job, and she obviously found it really fascinating. But on the the other empowerment part was that the way that she took courses while she was working at Emory, and then she went to the trouble to transfer to Oglethorpe and finish her bachelor's degree. I forget how old she was, but in her 40s, right? 60s. Oh my gosh, yeah, okay. I didn't count. But also, she'd been renting apartments for a long time, and she finally bought a condominium near Emory. And I remember that when she was moving into the condo, the movers were carrying some furniture, and they got close to bumping into a wall, and she started to say, "Oh, be careful." And then she stopped herself, and she said, "This is my house." I'm sure the movers were like, "Okay, lady." But but I was going to also, tell one other story about something that happened when we lived in that apartment. She left to go. She went to visit her mom for a few days, and Lorelei and I had sort of recently become friends, and when I'm gonna step back for a second and say a friend of mine had this therapist, and that he liked, and so I went to see this therapist, and this therapist had this idea that just in sort of talking about things, I was talking about these stuffed animals that I used to have a whole collection of them, and one of them was this teddy bear all the fur had kind of come off of the teddy bear, and one of his eyes was missing, I think, and stuff like that. And she says, "Well, you should take that teddy bear and reupholster it, like redo the teddy bear so he's new again, And I told my mom about that, and she went out and got all the materials. She got the fur and the eyes and the felt for the tongue or whatever, And I don't think we ever got around to doing it. I think we still got the materials somewhere, but that was a pretty neat thing that she just jumped on that, Well, visiting that same therapist, who I only saw a couple of times, but one of the times that I was there, it was while Mom was out of town, and somebody found this kitten. For some reason, it had a flea collar on, but it was only as big as my fist, And it looked like it was about to expire. But I ended up taking it home, and Lorelei and I put it on a pillow, and I forget how we found out about this. We put a metronome next to it, which is supposed to be like its mother's heartbeat or something, and then we fed it milk with a dropper, and it actually recovered. So it became our cat, but I guess it was because of the milk, it was emitting some noxious vapors. And we decided to name the cat Stinky. But when Mom got back, when Mom got back, she found out that Lorelei and I were a couple, so that was one thing. And then, and then she found out we'd adopted a cat in her place. And then we told her that we'd name the cat Stinky, and she said no. Yeah. And so she renamed the cat. Renamed the cat Spooky, and that name stuck. So that was an amazing cat. And she really adjusted and loved the cat too. What did I start to say? I feel like there's more to that story. What's the rest of that story? Oh, right, yeah. No.
She was out of town, but then she let us keep him at her apartment, and then you moved away,
Yeah, that's right. So she let us keep Spooky, and, he's strengthened, and we moved to Athens, and he stayed with Mom for a while. But then later, Spooky got older, and he got kidney disease, and we had so much stuff going on with our house. Oh, and Toby was allergic to the cat too, right? And so, Mom, when she took Spooky back in, and I would go over to her house and treat Spooky for the kidney disease and inject water under his skin, But she did that for a long time. I thought that was pretty amazing. So I don't want to go on and on, but I was also thinking about how. Especially last year, her memory really declined, and I was really struck by how she knew that she was having trouble remembering things, and sometimes she didn't know who we were, like she would kind of forget exactly. When she was staying at my house last year, and she said, she walked through the living room, and she walked up to me and she said, "Are you Todd Jackson?" Well, I'll tell you this. We had we'd added me to her checking account a few years before, just so I could help her with anything that came up. But anyway, she was walking through the living room and she said, "Are you Todd Jackson Qualls?" I said, "Well, of course." And she said, "You're the one on my checks." But she really, I never saw her upset about how that was going. I was really struck by that. She really just took it as it came. And I was also amazed by, she was like incredibly sweet that whole last few months, every time. Pretty remarkable. All right, well, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter's song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, since you went away, the days grow long, and soon we'll hear winter's song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
A Parable of Immortality by Henry Van Dyke. I am standing upon the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just where the sea and sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There, she is gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says, "There, she is gone," there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout. "Here she comes," they say, and that is dying. Jesus says in John 14, "In God's house, there are many rooms." We get very literal with that teaching in the sense of thinking that we're going to go from the kitchen to the dining room, or from the bedroom to the back porch, or that we're going to go from the hallway into the garage. And yes, we live in a literal house, But when Jesus talks about in God's house there are many rooms, as many of us in this room, in this sanctuary, are truth students, we know that Jesus did not mean that literally. That mystically and metaphysically, the idea that in God's house there are many rooms means that there are different experiences and different ways that we can be the presence we are. You know, in our teachings, we're told that we are spirit, soul, and body. And so we come into this lifetime in this earthly spacesuit. That's what I tell the congregation. This is your earthly spacesuit for this incarnation, for this experience, however we might think about it. And the soul of us is the incredible essence of all we are as a divine child of God, and the spirit are the rays of that soul, that sun that shine out from us. The mystics say we can't possibly encompass everything that is of our soul because it's too huge and too vast. It's like that teaching where Moses is ready to make his transition, and metaphysically he can't see all of God because God is so enormous and vast, and a light that is so blinding in our humanness we could not encompass it. And so it means for those of us who are Unity Truth students, as Sandy was, that we can hold that wisdom of the ancients, which says that death is really going from one room to another of experience. We release this, but the soul keeps going on to, as we often say, its next experience of everlasting life. The beauty of being one among a group, a family, a network, a community with such an exquisite, that's the word that just Sandy has gifted me to say about her, just an exquisite presence, is that we cannot help but be touched by the rays of spirit that shine forth from her soul. The body is gone, but the soul's rays shine through each of you in this room because of the beauty, the gentleness, the generosity, the wisdom, the strength that was Sandy. And so in whatever way you go forth from this place and you share a song, you tell a story, you check in with one of those people in the old building where she lived, you pull out the photographs, you pull out the artwork. She continues to be a shining light. Her love and her light lives eternally through you. And that is living. Let us join together responsibly in this beautiful prayer. It's called We Remember Her. Your part is easy. I'm going to read all the verses, and it takes us through the journey of our lives through all the seasons. It's called We Remember Her. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember her. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember her. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember her. When we have decisions which are difficult to make, we remember her. When we have achievements which are based on hers, we remember her. As long as we live, she too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her.
The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. Any fool can do it. There ain't nothing to it. Nobody knows how we got to the top of the hill. Since we're on our way down, we might as well enjoy the ride. The secret of love is in opening up your heart. It's okay to feel afraid, but don't let that stand in your way. 'Cause anyone knows that love is the only road. And since we're only here for a while, might as well show some style. Give us a smile. Isn't it a lovely ride? Sliding down, gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. Now the thing about time is that time isn't really real. It's just your point of view. How does it feel for you? Einstein said he could never understand it all. Planets are spinning through space. Smile upon your face. Welcome to the human race. Some kind of lovely ride. I'll be sliding down, I'll be gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. Isn't it a lovely ride? See me sliding down, gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time.
As we conclude, we have Another beautiful selection from James Dillett Freeman that many of you probably know by heart. We do an extended version of the prayer for protection, and this prayer was left on the moon in 1969. And we share it today as we bless Sandy in her next experience of everlasting life. And those of you who are truth students, if it feels good to you to rub them up, I invite you to rub them up and put your hands out and know that you are sending rays of love and light as we bless Sandy on her journey. Sandy, the light of God surrounds you. Sandy, the love of God enfolds you. Sandy, the power of God protects you. Sandy, the presence of God watches over you. Sandy, you are now in eternal, loving presence of God. And so it is. And so we let it be now and forevermore. Amen. And as we conclude this time together, the memories and the love continue on, and especially that peace that is the hallmark of our teachings, that was such a beautiful part of Sandy's being. So let us affirm, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with us. As Simon, Scott, and Lorelei make their way to the piano, I invite you just to, as this concludes, wait just a moment in your seats as the immediate family and I make our way out to the foyer so that we can greet you.
As you see by the notice, this is a congregation, so almost everybody knows Let There Be Peace on Earth. It was one of Sandy's favorite songs. Sandy, Stu, Sherry, and I all grew up singing Let There Be Peace. Please join us. Pardon? Let There Be Peace on Earth.
It's just a song that everyone
Everyone
sings
sings.
together, not on the radio, but here. No.
And Simon is accompanying us. Thank you, Simon. I want to hear you loud and clear.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let I walk with my brothers in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace.